I'm author Lin Lustig, and I want art in my books, so I'm drawing it. Hello, friends, and welcome back. So, I frequently get asked why I am an author, what made me want to go and tell stories, especially since I will frequently mention that I had a problem reading, I had a problem with books, but what really got me into storytelling was how influential stories were to me growing up. I was frequently obsessed with different media, such as Sailor Moon. I was obsessed with Lord of the Rings when it was coming out. Anything that people usually formed a fandom around, I was happily there. I decided to go to college for film studies and learned how to tell a story in a structured manner with the standard story arc, especially the hero's journey, which I'm sure is one you've heard of before, but if you haven't, it's basically Star Wars. I then chose to get married and followed my husband to the middle of nowhere, New Mexico, and that severely limited my options with the film industry. So my next best option to get the stories out of my head was to write them down, and I started writing and writing and writing. I actually finished my first manuscript when I was 21. I really wish I had self-published it at the time, but I am a perfectionist, so I decided to work for the next 10 years on my craft and came out with my first book that I will always think can be better, because again, perfectionist. But back to why I started writing. In New Mexico, I found that I was really isolated, and one of the ways to fix that was to create my own people, my own stories, my own characters. I realized that's somewhat what I'd been doing as a teenager. When I was depressed, I was going to stories. In those stories, I was finding these characters that allowed me to have relationships that put no pressure on me. And so I decided that with my stories, I wanted to give that to other people. There were creators in the world that had saved me, and they would never know it. I wanted to send something out there that helped people feel seen, that helped them know that they weren't alone. And I think it's extra interesting that when I did finally publish my first book, it was in the middle of the pandemic. And I did have a reader message me and tell me that that was what he needed. He needed characters that were messy. He needed characters that were brave, that were ridiculous, that were serious, that were everything, without being the alpha male, the top dog, the really buff, really strong guy that you tend to read in a lot of romance novels. Which, don't get me wrong, I'm not yucking on your yum. That is a definite character trope that has its place and can be a lot of fun in its own way. But my book is different, and there's nothing wrong with that either. I have a couple of comments that readers made to me that I will forever remember. One really beautiful soul told me that it helped them realize who they were. And that right there is everything. So I know at the end of the day, even if I don't sell 1 million copies, that I have at least reached one person that needed it. I guess there's not a lot else I can ask for. I'm going to ask for it anyway. I really want more people to read my pirates. I want them to fall in love with these silly characters. I want them to feel the joy and laughter and fun, because that is definitely something this world needs more of. Wow, sorry guys, that turned into like a weird therapy session, but that was really good for me to remember that I've already reached that goal. One person is enough, but the more the better. To sum up, I was a lonely nerd. I didn't want anybody else to feel like a lonely nerd, so I wrote some nerdy things for them to read. Moving on, let's talk about my characters in this book. The one I'm drawing right now is Pith. She is basically my optimistic side personified. Her counterpart is Blackbraid. Blackbraid is my evil queen side personified. One of my first beta readers returned the book to me and she kind of looked at me and was like, so these characters, I mean, they're kind of familiar. I looked at her and I was like, because they're me? And she was like, oh, good, you know. So if you are interested in seeing behind the curtain of this author's brain, this is going to be the perfect book to check out. This particular expression is inspired by one of the lines in my book, something about grumpy anticipatory pout. I actually don't remember the line specifically, but it comes back up at the end of the video. I'll pop it back up on the screen so you can read for yourself. I'm pretty sure I've mentioned before that I'm a bit strange. I swear my brain thinks sideways on how a lot of things are quote-unquote supposed to go. So a lot of my sentences and my sentence structure tends to be particularly unique. But that's part of the author voice. You're gonna get me, like so much me. For now, you've probably had too much. I hope this answered some of your questions about my journey with writing. Feel free to send in a few more and we can go over them next time. Until then, don't forget to like, subscribe, and come back soon. See ya.